Welcome to ECOM 2020 online. My name is Stella Aaltonen and I will be your moderator for the session. The topic is mobility as a service, a new transport model. And first we will have welcome words, and the first welcome words are coming from the Miguel Casaca, the Deputy Mayor of Cascais and a Deputy Chairman of the Regional Tourism Entity of Lisbon. I wish we were in Cascais, but this is the way to get Cascais here. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Good morning to you all. My dear Robert Teller, the President of the European Platform of Mobility Management, my dear Stella, the moderator for this morning debate, and today's speaker is Friso, Miguel, my dear friend Miguel that works with me, and Boyd Cohen, and all the community of EPPM. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen that are watching us from all over Portugal, Europe, and all the world. Welcome to my municipality, this beautiful town that you can't see, but you'll see one day, I'm pretty sure. This time in a different way. We are talking remotely, but as I said, I hope next time we'll be here in my municipality. It is a shame that we were unable to hold the event this year, especially one we have striven so hard to achieve. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, as you all know, the event was postponed to 2021. Next year, it will count as a new edition, therefore contemplating new themes, works, and organization. It was in this sense that, wanting to take advantage of all the effort made for the 2020 edition, we chose to hold 7 online conferences in June, like this one. For us, it has always been strategic to bring European Conference on Mobility Management to Cascais. It is, I would say, a global event that asserts itself as the true meeting place for all the actors in the mobility field. Together in Cascais, between 300 to 400 people to debate and learn about mobility management is for us very important. I would say that is crucial for the municipality of Cascais. The recognition we received by hosting the 23rd edition is in itself a very important push to our policy in terms of mobility in this municipality. The quality inherent in this program speaks for itself, and if there is a quality and willingness to share knowledge, then Cascais, my Cascais says immediately present and strongly supports it. We believe that sharing and cooperation are values above the competition or any ranking. And it is by sharing and cooperating that we are building the cities of the future. This is the spirit that must guide us all, as municipalities, as regions, as central governments. The challenge we constantly face is, and this is the question we have to find out an answer, what cities do we want in the future? And all of us together, sharing ideas, sharing knowledge, can and it will help us to build better cities in the future. The term smart city entered in the political lexicon a few years ago, and thankfully, but the idea of cognitive city, this new concept of cognitive city, also begins to enter step by step in the political lexicon. And what is a cognitive city? A cognitive city is a connected city. It's a city, for example, where those who live, work, or visit it do not need personal transport to move around. Cascais is a city that is totally focused with the environment. Therefore, in addition to promoting the use of public transport, promotes also smooth mobility and the vehicle sharing. But it is also safe and clean city, Cascais. It is a city where every citizen actively participates in the collective management of the town, of the territory. It is a city that links technological advances to the real improvements of people's lives. But it must be much more than just technology. I'm a tech guy. My background is technology, but it must be much more than just technology. It is a city with social awareness and collective harmony. It is a city that promotes access to culture as a social and central policy. A cognitive city always has the person, the human being in the center of all policies. And each municipal measure is oriented to create easier lives for everyone. A cognitive city makes combating bureaucracy a daily goal, facilitates, connects, streamlines, and enhances. Now the future of cities is at stake. According to the United Nations study, as you all know, it is estimated that about 2/3 of the world population will live in cities by 2050. About 55% of the world's population currently lives in cities nowadays. The same study estimates that in the coming decades, it will rise till 70%. So far, there are 33 large urban centers with an estimated population of more than 10 million people. By 2030, 43 urban centers are expected to be reached, mainly in developing countries. In 1990, there were only 10 major metropolitan areas in the world. This is therefore a reality now in 2020. Now, if there is a human force for accelerating cities, we cannot deny or pretend that the answers are the same as before. We need new answers. Cascais has positioned itself as a smart city since its creation more than 650 years ago. To be more accurate, 656 years ago. And as a land of early adopters, we like to be early adopters, to assume risk, to take risk. For this reason, the experimentation of new technological solutions has been a flag of this municipality, which already has about 1 million sensors installed in all the territory. And we have a predictive operations center already in production. However, there is no point in having a smart city if we do not have the mission to assure to our employees, fellow citizens, and those who visit us to make Cascais the best place to live. And for us and everyone's involvement is an essential condition for success. We need mission for a success story to be implemented in our municipality. The paradigm shift in cities, as I have already mentioned, it obliges us to constantly search for innovative solutions. But what is a smart city for us? There must be 6 essential pillars: smart living, smart governance, smart people, smart mobility, smart economy, and smart energy and environment. So mobility is crucial for us, as I said before. When we applied, we have put 10 points on our line of action. I don't want to bore you with this description, but I'm sorry, but I must underline some of these points, not all, but just a few of these very important points for me. The form of government we found, the municipality of Cascais, assumed the role of transport authority in our territory and delegated the competences to develop and explore the integrated mobility system to our Cascais Próxima. The CEO of Cascais Próxima is Miguel, that will speak in the next panel. We promote policies that cause behavioral change. We look at mobility as a service. Maas is in the center of our strategy. We promote smooth mobility. Citizens are offered 3 different services: share leisure bikes, bike sharing services, and bicycle parking service. We create a digital platform, an app, to integrate all the different modes of mobility. We installed a cockpit control center in our town with predictive capabilities, as I said. Universal accessibility, everyone can access. Free mobility to everyone. We also organize sessions on the topic and have, with great honor, received international distinctions in organizing events and sharing knowledge. The priority for Cascais are their citizens, and if technology comes to solve their problems and comes to provide better quality, then technology is a priority for Cascais. We do not understand technology as an end in itself, and we are not gadget-oriented or gadget addict. We like gadgets, of course, but we like those gadgets or technologies that solve citizens' problems. In Cascais, we don't use technology to make the best out of time. We use technology to create time of quality, time to live. Always with an integrated and linked policy, of course. There is no isolated sector. We look at the territory as a whole, and mobility is strategic in our idea of city. Knowing that better mobility means better quality of life for all inhabitants of Cascais. Allowing everyone to get to work better and faster allows companies to be more productive. but returning home also fast and safe assures a better quality of life. And this is our focus, as I said. I wish you all a fruitful webinar and debate. And as I said in the beginning of my speech, I hope next time we can meet here in Cascais, this beautiful town, my hometown, the best place for you to live a day, a week, or a lifetime. All the best.
Thank you so much. I have had the pleasure of being in Cascais, and it's truly an amazing place. So hope to see you there next year. And next, I have a welcoming words from the Mr. Robert Taylor, the president of the EU Platform on Mobility Management from Austria. The floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. Good morning from Vienna. A warm welcome to all participants in the name of EPOM, the European Platform on Mobility Management, and a warm thanks to our Portuguese friends, in particular to the city of Cascais and also to the Portuguese ministries involved, the government and the IMT. And we are now in the lab, so to say, because this is the first pre-ecom of an ecom, because as you know, as a fact of the COVID-19 crisis, we had to postpone ecom 2020 to ecom 21. And it did happen in Cascais. So we are now in, this is an extraordinary situation, and we have been forced to do that, despite the fact that we all wanted to go to Cascais and to enjoy the beautiful city and also the innovative approach that you have heard from the deputy mayor. So warm greetings to you all. So this is a lab, I said. This is the first time that we meet virtually. And we are now in a very decisive phase, especially when you see the consequences of the pandemic crisis. This has brought a lot of restrictions, a lot of impacts to transport, to mobility as a whole. In fact, we have been forced to stay at home a long time, also here in Austria and in a lot of countries in the world. And we don't know if all the things are over. So I think we have to rethink also the mobility policies, not only on a national level, but also internationally. I mean, we see a lot of very, very concerning trends because all people, or a lot of citizens, so to say, have still even if they can move, they have still fear to use public transport. And we see these, the modal splits is going down, it's still down, and this is a big, big problem. So we have trends as a consequence of this pandemic that are frightening, not only because of the restrictions, but also because of the consequences in transport. And on the other hand, we see that the car use has begun to become safe again. So because people think in the car they are much safer than in public transport, which is now, as a consequence, coming to an increase of car use. And if you ask people, citizens in opinion polls, they say, no, I will use in the future, I will use certainly more, again, the private car and not public transport. So this is a real big problem we have to face, and to get back to the credibility of public transport and to make it attractive again for users. This must be one of the biggest efforts in the future. On the other hand, we had a very important trend for active mobility, because people recognize that a city which is bikeable and easy walkable is also resilient in these days of the crisis. And cycling has become, and also walking, of course, has become an important pillar of mobility in cities. And the awareness all over the world is increasing that these are important means of transport and not just the so-called non-motorized niche. So I think this is really, on the other side, a positive change. The awareness that active mobility is becoming more important in the future is there. But what means that? That means we have to reallocate the space in our cities, and I'm very glad that the Deputy Mayor said we have to think what kind of cities we want to live in, what kind of mobility we want to have in the future. And maybe this pandemic situation and the staying at home has hopefully brought some stakeholders and decision makers to rethink policies. I think this is, as I said, these trends are some kind contradictory we have to face. On the other hand, you see that mobility management as a whole concept, bringing all the puzzle stones in transport policy together, is even more important now. And if you have not a clever mobility management plan for situations like we faced, then you have also problems later on and also in the recovery phase. Let me say some words for the recovery phase, because this is now in all over Europe, governments are allocating billions, millions of euros for recovery, for the recovery plans, for the economy, for transport, for the whole social life. And we are, I think, also the debate here on this ECOM 2020 in a virtual way, preparing the ECOM 21, should focus on that, because this will be a very important thing to have guidance how to avoid one important element. There might be a trap when we make the recoveries, because we have to avoid lock-in situations. So I think it would be wise to take all the millions, billions of euro we are now investing, to take them and to invest them in environment-friendly and healthy and resilient mobility. That means walking, cycling, reallocation of space in cities, new city planning, and of course connectivity between cities and the hinterlands in an environment-friendly make public. So this must be the focus, not car scrapping schemes as may be proposed by some stakeholders, for example. So we have to be very clever in these recovery plans. And also we have to think on the resilience of our cities in the future, because pandemic crisis may come again. So we have to rethink our mobility policy, and this must give the focus on the allocation of space. Walking estates are the most resilient transport means, and of course public transport. So you see there is a big task ahead of us, because we are in an extraordinary position, and we have to think extraordinary also in our solutions. And I hope that the ECOM, on a virtual basis, can bring in a lot of new elements of thinking to the preparation of the ECOM 21 in Cascais, where we all want to come to Cascais and to meet together face by face and not just electronically. So I thanks again to all the organizers. I hope that we find the right answers to this extraordinary situation, and that we even get more positive out of this crisis, and use the chances that are there and avoid the risks. So all the best for the ECOM here in Cascais, the pre-ECOM, so to say, here 2020 in Cascais, and I look forward to see what the future-looking results will be. And thanks again to all the organizers, and especially to IMT and to our Portuguese ministries, and of course the city of Cascais.
Thank you for the welcome words. Today's panel is about mobility as a service, and I will raise 3 different approaches for the panelists before their presentations. So mobility as a service is based on combining different solutions available, even provided by different service providers. So what is needed to diversify the offer available in cities? Maas highlights the importance and role of the digital mobility in the management of integrated transport systems. Easy and simple interface through which several mobility offers are available with one ticket. User needs in focus so that the user can choose the most appropriate way for the purpose in question. Sounds very promising, but what is it needed for that? And a third thing, which is in all Maas discussions, a strong public transportation is a core of Maas. Now, in the light of coronavirus, the public transportation has faced clearly drops in user numbers. What will happen with Maas? Is there really a business case in the Maas context? I have today three experienced gentlemen with me in the panel, and I'm going to give each one of them a 10-minute discussion space to raise some of the topics and some of the answers to the questions in here. And dear participants, you are free to send questions through the chat, and I'm taking those in afterwards. So first we start with Mr. Friso Metz. He's a senior advisor in Advi in a Dutch consultancy. Metz has worked in the field of mobility management, shared mobility, and behavior change. Friso is a forerunner in actually building stakeholder cooperation. So, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Stella. And I was in Cascais 2 years ago, actually, and it was very nice to cycle along the beaches. So I really look forward to be there next year. And now I would like to share my screen just to show a very few pictures that really give a vibe on the work we are taking up in the Share North partnership. So Share North is a European project funded by Interreg, which has started in 2015, and we were requested to go on with the work in 2018, so we can continue until 2021. And the Share North project focus on the development and giving shared mobility a boost. So we are thinking about strategies on research. We are working in a mix of living labs to demonstrate the benefits of shared mobility. And we work on integration of shared mobility modes. So you might think on mobility hubs, mobility as a service, integrating shared mobility in the mobility management work for companies, and integrating shared mobility in real estate development. So new housing projects with a low car use. Another part of the Share North project is the development of a shared mobility manual. So it's a document in which we describe why shared mobility is important, what it is, what are the benefits, and what should you do as a government, and how to integrate the several forms of shared mobility and how to give it a boost. On this picture, you may see quite a lot of forms of shared mobility, several modes of car sharing, bike sharing, micromobility, but also ride sharing and ride sourcing. And we even made a nice icon gallery, which will be distributed soon. And we described all these forms of shared mobility. And I want to pay special attention to the picture on the right, which is about shared space. And I think that's at first glance a bit a weird picture in this family, but it's essential, since we discovered that shared mobility has the power in it to free up urban space. So, for example, with car sharing, one of our partners is the city of Bremen, and they found out that every shared car replaces 16 private cars from the streets. So it's a huge benefit for the city that we can free up urban space, and we can do much more nicer things, like giving the streets back to children who can play. And in this COVID-19 times, it's crucial to have space for pedestrians and cyclists. So we can make this space by promoting shared mobility. And when we get rid of car ownership, all the cars that are parked in the streets, we can get rid of them. So that's a huge benefit. as I showed in this picture, I have to describe it a bit because it's a bit weird, perhaps. But it really shows the vibe which has been going on in the project since the start. And we also organized conferences titled Shared Mobility Rocks. It will also become the title of the manual that we hope to publish around summer this year. And it really, well, it's not very nice to say because we hear a lot of negative things about virus, but we hope that the shared mobility story we are developing will spread like a virus all around the world. So, and the bottom line of this shared mobility and all the several forms of shared mobility is that it has to be there. This session is about mobility as a service. Well, we know areas where they really are tech focused, like the mayor explained. So they are developing mobility as a service platforms and do the digital integration, etc., which is of course very important. But then they discovered that there is no shared mobility in the area, and you really need to have a vision as a government on shared mobility. And you shouldn't wait on the market because they could come or they could not. But will these market actors solve your problems? So you need, as a city or as a region, you need a vision on shared mobility. What do we want to do with it? How can we promote it? And you should take the lead, because, and that's also this urban space. Shared mobility also needs urban space. So the operators, they may request you to play a role in your cities, but they need urban space, and that's why they need you. And if you don't get into action, it won't get there. Well, mobility as a service might be seen as the digital integration of shared mobility and other forms of mobility, but you also need physical integration. So you need a place where all these forms of mobility come together, and we call them Mobi hubs. And they might be at public transport stations or at neighborhood spaces. And we see a Mobi hub as the place where your sustainable trip is starting. So you go to the hub, and today you choose to use the bus, and tomorrow it may be a shared bike or a shared car. Anyway, it is there. And you can also see a hub is a nice place to be. So it should be part of the daily life. We also made some logos in several languages, and we think that these Mobi hubs are a great way to work on the integration of shared mobility, and it will power the mobility as a service. So one final note on COVID. Mr. Robert Thaler already said something about the impacts. Well, what we see is that indeed many people they want to take their private car again, and as they fear the use of public transportation. Well, so that's really a challenge. Well, the positive thing is that shared mobility also is a kind of individual transport. So you're alone on your shared bike or in your shared car or with your family. So that's quite safe as well. So we already see that there's lots of interest for car sharing again and bike sharing. We also see that in the Dutch city of Rotterdam, the city really sees the need for bike sharing. And well, we don't have e-scooter sharing in the Netherlands, it's not allowed, but we have electric moped sharing. And the city sees that all the people, if they take the car again, cars and cities, it doesn't work together. So people might take their car, but then need to be a place where they can use a public bike or electric moped. So now they really are cooperating with the shared mobility sector to see if they can provide alternatives for the private car use. So I think the main challenge is that we have to make shared mobility better than car ownership and car use. And if we succeed in that challenge, and mobility as a service is a part of that picture, but if we succeed in this challenge, we really can provide change. So that's my story for now. Thank you very much, and looking forward to all reactions and all discussions.
Thank you, Friso. It is very important that there is something to combine into the mobility as a service platform. So that thank you for raising these issues. I will get back to the discussion afterwards. So the next gentleman I have is Paulo Miguel Casaca. He is the president of the board of the administrative municipality company Cascais Proxima. So he is the man behind the Mobi Cascais, and we look forward to hearing your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella. Good morning. My name is Miguel Casaca, and I'm the chairman of Cascais Proxima. For the next minutes, I hope not 10 minutes, I'm going to present Mobi Cascais, the mobility management system of Cascais, and what sets it apart from other initiatives. For a start, let me introduce you to the municipality of Cascais. We are located at 25 kilometers away from Lisbon, the Portuguese capital, and it's the fifth most populated municipality with 210,000 residents, as well as being one of the 8 municipalities of the Lisbon metropolitan area. Cascais is one of the Portuguese municipalities with the highest level of motorization and whose mobility is mostly based on individual transport, which has generated an overload of the infrastructures and an overdependence of individual transport. Our objective is to counter the situation, while also developing Cascais into a smart city. In other words, soon enough people will say that Lisbon is located on the outskirts of Cascais and not other way around. For this reason, in 2016, and following the publication of the legal regime of the public passenger transport service, the executive of the City Hall decided to assume directly and by his own means the management of all municipal components related to urban mobility, and took 2 fundamental strategic decisions, namely, assume the role of Cascais Municipality Transportation Authority in terms of public passenger transport services. By the end of 2018, the public tender of the provision of the public passenger regular road transport service was launched in the municipality of Cascais, and it became one of the first Portuguese municipalities to do so. As a result of this tender, the number of buses, lines, and the frequencies of the service practically doubled. Assigned the municipality company Cascais Proxima the competence to develop and manage the integrated system of sustainable mobility that is designed by Mobi Cascais. Mobi Cascais is an integrated management system for accessibility and sustainable mobility in Cascais. This system is based on Mobi Cascais, is the integrated management system for accessibility to sustainable mobility in Cascais. It is based on an integrative platform of several transport services providers and a network of infrastructures and equipment. Its objective is to offer a diverse and flexible set of mobility solutions and services that meet the needs of the residents. workers and entrepreneurs and visitors of the municipality. This system comprises car parking, public transportation by bus, the public network of shared bicycles, and integration of other modes of transport and services, all of them supported by technological solutions. These decisions allowed developing mobility as a service in Cascais and the implementation of the following measures. The Mobi app is an innovative digital application that integrates all the mobility services in one single platform and allows the user to know the real-time schedules and delays of the transports, the estimated time of a certain stop, the number of available parking spaces, the existing bicycles in each station, and the possibility to reserve them at the perfect stations, among other functionalities. It is a platform made for the user citizen and supported by a back office that manages all the services provided, including payment systems, control and monitoring. It can be integrated with other apps, and everything is duly articulated with the local and regional transport provider and with the regional transport authority. Both the residents and the workers can already benefit from the revolutionary local and regional passes that were created last year. About the mobility as a service, Maas, we have mobility packages. Cascais developed the first Portuguese Maas. Since the beginning, we have been developing mobility packages which provide integrated tariff solutions. These mobility packages not only reduce the cost for the users, but also allows access to different modes of transport from different operators. Shared bicycle rental, car parking, and car sharing services according to the demand and the characteristics of the users. The entire offer of transport and services is managed by Mobi Cascais app. These mobility packages have been developed over the past 2 years and are constantly being improved. To induce behavioral changing or nudging, we have articulated a parking policy with the public transport offer by creating new bus lines and alternative car parks. Therefore, we introduce paid and short-term parking at the central areas of Cascais, where the demand is very high. We have also ensured the journey between the car parks and the final destination is made as fast and comfortable as possible. We have implemented also a shared bicycle system that integrated 3 different services: shared leisure bicycles, the bike sharing services, and the bike parking service, which allowed the user to park both a personal and shared leisure bicycle at our station. This service is based on a network of bike paths and cycleways, which are constantly expanding. We are also on the verge of introducing the offer of shared electrical scooters and car sharing through partnership agreements with the
Let's see if we are able to get the video working from Portugal. Thank you for sending already questions in. I will be taking those soon, and you are free to send more. And meanwhile, I hope that Miguel Casaca's connection can be resolved. So if not, I mean, we will move to the third speaker meanwhile and give the final words to Miguel in the end. So my third speaker is Mr. Boyd Cohen. He's an author of several books on sustainable entrepreneurship and urban innovation.
Oh, okay, I returned. Sorry.
You returned. So go ahead, continue.
I'm not sure if it was the coronavirus or not in my computer.
You're free to, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, as I was saying, the big revolution, it's the launch of the public tender for the provision of public passenger regular road transport service in the municipality of Cascais, and the creation of new bus lines with its internal operation. Cascais has become, since January 2020, the first municipality in Portugal and one of the few in the world with free public transport by bus for those who live, work, or study in the municipality. We are aware of the importance of the mobility as a tool for inclusive territory and full citizenship rights. This measure is funded by the revenues from both surface and underground car parking, from the UC, vehicle tax, vehicle excessive duty, and the revenues from advertising in the public spaces and buses. About the technological system for supporting real-time management and communication with the citizens, the municipality is committed to develop Cascais into a fully fledged smart city. For this reason, we have designated an operations center designated as C2, Cascais Cockpit, and its mission is to ensure the integration of the various aspects for the operational management for the municipality, such as the mobility, the environment, and the interventions in the territory. Mobi Cascais integrates the C2 mobility vertical through a technological integration platform for the various transport operators and the different service and marketing means. This platform also ensures the operational of command and control process of the different functionalities as forecasting and automatic learning systems and systems of communication that provide real-time information to the users. For example, video surveillance, park access control, alarm systems, parking permit management systems, bike sharing and bike parking management systems, public transport management and operating system, including bus locations, service management systems provided by different operations and platforms such as taxis, Uber, Cabify, Cityrama, Hertz car sharing, school transport, non-urgent patient transport, Paysimplex, Via Verde, an operational indicator platform in real-time communication and information systems with the users and the general public, among other features. In Cascais, we like to innovate and develop. So the creation of add value for the future is also a huge concern for the municipality of Cascais. For this reason, we promote several initiatives that focus on innovation and knowledge. One of which is the introduction of an autonomous vehicle for passengers transport that is being operated and monitored by Cascais Próxima and was the subject of research agreements with the universities in the municipalities. Another sui generis initiative was the development of a transport system at request for non-urgent patients of Cascais. Recently, and while facing the COVID-19 pandemic, we have used all the tools at our disposal and followed a guideline of good practices to meet the needs of our citizens. For example, our mayor and municipal deputies were involved in daily questions and answers online sections with the direct participations of our citizens. I thank you all for your attention and for having joined this debate. I hope to see you all in Cascais next year, where we can hug, handshake and kiss at ECOM 2021 to share some thoughts, best practice, and to discuss the future of mobility management. And I will also be a good opportunity to meet Cascais and everything that it has to offer. Our culture, the natural setting, the sea, the good food, and of course, the friendly people. Thank you, and I wish you all a very good day.
Thank you so much. And now we move on to the third approach. So this is a company approach. So, I mean, Bert has written the books that I mentioned already earlier, but he's also co-founder and CEO of IOMOB that has won a lot of awards. So what is it all about? Have your opinion. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Nice to be here virtually. Like everyone else said, I would love to have been there in physical presence to ride around the city and get to know everybody in person, as they said, hopefully next year. Unprecedented times we live in, and of course the theme of this session has even evolved from when we originally submitted abstracts, with the presence of COVID being so important in society and rethinking what this means for our cities, for transportation, for our regions. And I'm gonna sort of blend a little bit of my thinking on a range of those topics. I worked a lot in smart cities for many years. And in fact, the model that Cascais is using as their smart cities model is very reminiscent of the work I did around the smart cities wheel and working with cities around the world. Mobility, of course, is a key fundamental aspect of life, and it must remain after. We will see, obviously, a lot of changes to human behavior, to corporate expectations regarding telework. There's more openness to it. I think we're going to see less people commuting longer distances on a daily basis, maybe less frequently. Maybe they'll have better access to co-working spaces that are distributed around the city where they can walk to or cycle to or more easily get to. But as others have said, public transit and rail, whether it's commuter or intercity rail, has to be a fundamental part of today and tomorrow. It just has to be. If not, we will see, as others have said, a reversion to a reverse modal shift, as we've been, especially in Europe, moving away from car dependence and towards shared mobility, mass transit, public transit. That trend has to continue, along with this exciting new opportunity we're seeing, which is an expansion of access to pedestrian and micromobility spaces in cities so that people can do more active transit. And also we need to think about how can they more safely travel. And, you know, not only will COVID probably come back, as we know, unfortunately, but this won't be the last virus either. So I think we need to, as someone else referred to earlier, think about how do we build resilience into our mobility ecosystem. And I think Maas is a key fundamental building block for resilience. And it is if you embrace open mobility, if you embrace an open marketplace. So I'm from the US, as you can probably tell from my accent. In the US, they have a more of a preference, or at least they're quite open to what we would call walled garden models. So more monopoly models where one company owns different mobility services, different modes of service, and they package them in one app and they want to own the customer. We believe that a more European view of this is superior, and that is open marketplace. Any provider, small, startup, public, private, doesn't matter, should be able to access a mobility marketplace and create an open network effect so that for the user of whatever app that is accessing this open marketplace, they can discover, route, book, and pay for any service in the community they live in or when they're traveling to a new city without having to download new apps, not having to rely on these walled garden apps. Because what you have is a lot of inefficiency in the system when people get herded to a monopolized Maas platform. And the reason that's inefficient is, let's not name any companies, but very large companies have good access to their vehicles, say ride-hailing vehicles. But how often is that company's ride-hailing vehicle the closest to a user right now when they need to go from A to B, compared to all the other taxis and all the other services available? Not that often. But if people are herded to these monopolized walled gardens and they're always opening that app, they're relying on whatever services that provider has available. And even if it's 10 minutes away, despite there being one block away from another provider, that user won't even see it. And that's not our vision of the future of mobility. The future of mobility, in our opinion, has to be open. It's an open marketplace. Anyone can play. Now, IAMOB's view of the world of how we deliver this Maas solution is, instead of being the face and the brand to the end customer, we've chosen a different path, which is we build our own algorithms. So we're not relying on Google's algorithms. We've built our own that allow this infinite combination of public and private services. We deeply integrate any mobility service provider, public and private, that wants to be part of the ecosystem. And then we deliver this to enterprise transportation customers. I think, just for ease of sharing where I'm going with this, I'm going to share just a few slides with you. Here's an example. There's 3 clients here that we do a lot of work in the rail industry. So with national rail operators who want to solve door-to-door journeys, first and last mile with rail service, but also offer a local mobile experience when you're in a particular city. So Renfe is a good example in Spain, LNER in the UK, we're just starting with. We also work with regional transit authorities like Skåne Trafiken here. So a part of the theme of today has shifted to think about COVID. And IAMOB has been thinking a lot about COVID and how is it going to change mobility patterns, and how Maas platforms like IAMOB need to shift our technology to support a post-COVID future, which was part of the challenge for the discussion today. We conceived of some very innovative features around social distancing within a Maas platform, and we went out and recruited these 22 global organizations who wrote letters of support for our initiative to incorporate social distance features into our platform. So here you're seeing an example of one component of that technology, which is a social distance filter. So during a pandemic, a user, instead of just choosing what's the greenest route, the fastest route, or the cheapest route, can say, show me the route that is the safest in a pandemic. And therefore, we have some factors I won't go into now that allow us to filter services that are most conducive to maintaining social distance on your A to B journey, combining multiple modes, public and private. After we released this initial concept of where we wanted to go with post-COVID Maas, we started talking more with different transport operators, and we discovered a very big pain point for them that needed to be packaged into this new version of Maas. And that's something we're calling virtual seat. And that is when a transit authority or rail operator does not have the ability to pre-sell and book assigned seats, where they can take a seat map and only sell seats that are socially distant from each other. Instead, when they don't have that, when it's hop on, hop off service, we can support a reservation system that's based on times, and using our algorithms, they tell us where they want to start and where they want to end their journey. And we can block a seat, a virtual seat for them, assuring lower capacity in the buses or the trains or the vehicles that are mass transit, to enable this outcome that people can be safer while they travel. They get a QR code. We have something called a mobility passport, which is an extension of the virtual seat, but you get a QR code for a multimodal public transit journey. So if you're going to take a suburban rail to a transit hub and then a bus or a metro, you can use the same QR code and a larger block of time that supports this multimodal journey. We believe, again, the future of mobility, just like the present, has got to have rail and public transit at its core. And so we need to think about how can we ensure safety of people using those services while allowing them to connect to other safer services that are around them. To us, that's the future. And I'll just conclude with this because there was discussion around revenue and business models for Maas. We're agnostic as a company, IAMOB, to what our clients, transit authorities and rail operators want to do with their Maas platform and how they want to monetize it. Some don't want to monetize it. Our transit authority clients are not talking about how to monetize Maas. What they're talking about doing is how to get more people safely in public transit by solving first and last mile. Some of our clients are definitely looking at how can they generate additional revenue, whether that's a rail client who wants to increase people's use of rail instead of cars to go between cities. By solving that door-to-door journey seamlessly, it makes rail even more appealing. So there's a range of approaches that we're finding transport authorities and rail operators are looking at regarding how they can make money from a Maas platform. That concludes my 10 minutes and looking forward to the panel discussion.
Thank you so much. Now I would ask all of my panelists to be with the cameras here, and we have received several questions from the audience already. 3 different approaches on the same topic, one starting from the provider side, and one from the platform side, and one from the city sides. So very interesting approaches. So now there are many questions that are towards how is it financed and how can the financing be actually maintained. So if we start with the money, since Boyd was finishing with the money, so we start with the money issue, is that there are questions that are coming from, particularly on the case of Cascais, and I would like to start with one question that has come, and it's directed to Miguel Casaca. Ana Gomez from Portugal is asking a specific question is how to finance and afford the money to offer free transportation to everyone. And there's another question directed to that, is that how do you see the financial model changing if actually other operations are combined to your Mobi Cascais system?
Okay, here in Cascais we decided that the free transportation, and that was our final goal, has to be financed by the parking system, the traffic fees that we get a share of the traffic fees also, and the UC. It's a tax for all the cars that are registered in our municipality. So with all those financing systems, it's what we are using to provide the free transportation to our citizens, to the people that works in Cascais, and to students. The visitors will have to pay in our buses, but this is how we are financing all this system. It starts with car parking. After the car parking, with the UC, it's that tax, and with the fees from the traffic infractions.
Thank you. And one question related to that is what is included in the partnership agreement model with micromobility providers in Cascais? What's included in the agreement?
In Cascais, since the beginning, we noticed that we need to be the pioneers. We need to start. And at the moment, we are open to partnerships from privates to develop and improve all the system that we have, because our biggest concern is to provide the best service to who come to Cascais for 1 day, 1 week, or lives here for all the life. I don't know if I answer your questions, but I think
kind of. You didn't reveal the partnership agreement, but that's okay.
Oh no, not the partnership. But we have at this moment partnerships with Hertz, we have a partnership with Scotter that provides the bus transportation system, but they are changing because another company won the last contract. They will start at the end of this year, but we are open to other partnerships because we believe that the municipality has an important role, but also the privates to ensure that the service is the best that we can offer to everybody.
I think this is a very interesting topic, and I would like to have also Friso's and Boyd's opinion. There is a question that is related to this, as in Qashqai it has been very publicly led, the Maas creation, and now there's integration coming in. So the question is, should these kind of initiatives be actually public-led or private-led? And what is your opinion based on experience? So maybe Friso, if you would start.
Yeah. Well, what we discovered is that there are quite some differences in mobility services. So if you look at the e-scooter on Boyd's screen, it's quite a booming service led by global companies. So that's on the top of what you can call private money. On the other hand, there might also be very much type like social services, like shared cars for handicapped persons. And well, it's hard to get that into a business model, so they will be more or less public-led. So I like the word ecosystem that we heard today. So in an ecosystem, there's all kinds of flowers and trees and animals, and I think that's what we also have with shared mobility. There's all kind of services, and I think that mix is relevant, but it needs a different strategy. So the more social types, they might need some funding by the government. While if you work with Uber type companies, you might you should be aware of aspects like labor and is the regulations in place, etc. There are some dark sides which you have to deal with. So I think it's a mix, and every type needs its own approach.
Okay, thank you. What about Boyd? What do you think?
Yeah, with respect to different mobility services, I absolutely agree. There's public and private models that make sense. And even some of the private models may see more subsidized involvement of government. For example, there's a lot of debate around micromobility and should it be subsidized as first and last mile journeys for public transit. But if you're talking about the Maas platform itself and whether that should be public or private, I would also say I like the mix. I think there's an important role for the public authorities, whether it's a national rail operator or a regional or national transportation authority or a local one, to be the protagonist of a Maas platform where they can even provide what we call in Maas a level 4 incentives for societal benefits embedded into a Maas platform, which you're probably not going to find a private operator doing as much. Although you're even seeing some ideas around that, like health insurance companies encouraging active mobility with the idea of having their own Maas platform with their brand and encouraging, incentivizing more active mobility instead of car journeys, for example. So we'll see probably a mix. I think, our project in Skåne in Sweden is my favorite with respect to this point, because they have a very good mobile app, but they realize they're not the ones to build a Maas platform. And this, to me, and I'm biased, of course, because my company builds Maas solutions for public agencies a lot, but I think it's a flaw for a lot of agencies to try to build their own, either internally or even use taxpayer money to build from scratch a new Maas platform. Our Maas platform, just like all good ones out there, take years to build right. They're constantly being innovated. They do require often venture capital funding to build these because they're not profitable early on. It's a multi-year project, and it requires ongoing innovation, like I showed around social distance innovation that we're bringing in. And that's just generally not the purview of most public transit agencies regarding their expertise. So I think they should be looking to providers who build established technologies like a Maas platform, and then customize it if they need to for their purpose. But the additional thing that I really like we're doing in Skåne Traffic, and that I've never seen any other transit authority do yet, is they're paying us to build the core, to develop the technology to insert into their own app so that they can have their own Maas platform. But they're encouraging us to allow the same technology platform to be accessible to third-party private Maas aggregators who can access their public transit through our integrations and all the micromobility, everything else we have, and our algorithms, and then offer it as a competing Maas platform in their community. And each of these can choose, if you go back to those business models I discussed, there can be all different revenue models. You can add new services on top. Some can travel more around a region like all of Scandinavia. So you can have innovation. You can have an open marketplace for Maas. But I do think there's an important role for the transit agency to be driving a version of Maas. I just don't think they necessarily should be paying to build it themselves.
Good, thank you. I think there's a fruit for many kind of solutions at the moment, and one of the issues coming from the audience is that the codependence actually. For example, in case of Cascais, you are very dependent on the Lisbon and the offerings that Lisbon is offering. Same is in both of the other cases. So how do you consider the codependency impacting? I mean, if something changes rapidly or there's a stop on something, so how do we manage this kind of process? So maybe Friso, you would start.
Well, I think we are in a world that is developing so fast if it's on this mobility issues. And there's always dependency. And I think waiting is for others to come into action is not the smart way. So I think the best is to get in action and to just to start. And for example, we work with cities that are developing a shared mobility offer, and then some ask, well, but what about mobility as a service? Is it integrated to other services? No, it's not yet, because it's not yet the time for it. But should we wait until that? No, we can just start. And perhaps people need 3 or 4 apps, but what's the big issue? I have hundreds of apps on my telephone, but in time it might become 2 or even one app, and perhaps I want to have several Maas apps on my telephone in the future for some reason. But I think the most important thing is to start with this development. And be flexible, be prepared to adapt and to connect to other services.
Thank you. What about Cascais?
Well, Selim, first of all, I think Boyd has been in Cascais looking for what we were doing this time, because that's our system. We ask for an app that can integrate other systems in our own app, because we need to be pioneer. If we were, as Friso said, if we were waiting for the others, we will be stuck, still stuck, and we couldn't do nothing. We started with our systems. We were the pioneers about the transport authority, but we decided that it was very important always to be open to conversation with our neighbors. For instance, we have several systems about paying the parking, our parking system, and those systems are also in the other municipalities nearby us. But we were the first ones to start it. And I think that's the government, or in this case, the region, needs to be the startup of these systems. Or if we wait for the privates, it will be much harder to implement all the systems in our municipality.
Thank you. And before Boyd answers, I have several specific ones coming to you. And would it be possible to integrate into your system also sharing your private car and seats on your car, and also safety issues? These are now questions from the audience. Go ahead.
Are you're asking Miguel or me?
You Boyd.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. I thought you were asking Miguel. Yeah, so the questions were safety, and what were the other ones?
And also sharing your private car, seat in your private car. And even now there's coming also questions about logistics.
Yeah, that's a common question as well. We certainly at IMOB are embracing every form of mobility, and it actually ties into your prior question around building resilience and addressing the codependence issue. I think the more services, the more modes of service you integrate, and also, this hasn't come up much in this conversation yet, but IMOB is a big believer in a more regional approach to Maas rather than a very narrowly defined urban approach to it. And the reason is many people, especially in Europe, travel between cities or from suburban areas to urban areas on a regular basis. And the artificial territories around urban boundaries, which are sometimes what are the responsibility of a single transit authority, are barriers to supporting that resilience, because if people have to travel across boundaries on a regular basis, then you need to have enough mobility services that are interconnected seamlessly so people can move around those regions. So we think that's an aspect of solving the codependence issue and the resilience issue you said. On the safety and the types of mobility services, again, yeah, IMOB is agnostic to mobility service, so car sharing, carpooling. We have some cool new models that we're working on, including, so I'll give you some interesting examples that relate back to this resilience idea for cities, which is we've had some cities ask us, could they use the platform if they required every private operator to connect to the platform to have a license to operate in their community. They could then do some dynamic rule changes that sometimes benefit the private operator as well, and to respond to crises. For example, we had an operator in the US ask us, could we, if we have normally a restriction that only 1,000 vehicles, whether they're private ride hailing or public taxi licensed taxis, if we normally only allow 1,000 to circulate in a day, but there's a tornado, a hurricane, a terrorist attack, the electricity goes out in the transit system, could we dynamically increase the amount of vehicles that are allowed to circulate if they have the right licenses? And the answer is yes. So those are examples of ways, I think, when you have an open ecosystem, but you do compel the operators to connect to that ecosystem, you can do some really interesting things that resolve the resilience that are required for unknown future events.
Thank you. That was a very, very good reply to several of the issues. I mean, we are closing to the end. I mean, coming to the end in the session, and I'd like to give still everyone last words to say. And I would like it to be more on, if you had one wish that you could be fulfilling with mobility as a service issues or new transport, what would that be? And if I give the floor first to Friso.
Well, that's always challenging to be the first one. So the question is, what would be the dream with regards to mobility as a service? Well, my basic idea is that mobility as a service should be very practical. So it can be looked at from a technology point of view, but but my dream is to get people on board of it, and it starts with small steps. So I was just thinking, like, we had in the Netherlands, we had train tickets and we had bus tickets. Then we got one system. It's called the OV chip card. It's a pass. It's not yet an app. But I also had a pass for the bicycle storage at this railway station, and I had a pass for the bike sharing system. And now already they are integrated in one pass. And perhaps in the future it will become an app, and then there's more flavors in it. But I think the most important thing is to get people on board, and that requires behavior change, and it requires time. And the best thing, if we, like I said before, if we can develop things that are more valuable to people than just owning a single car. And I was inspired by the city of Bremen, where their car sharing service exists of many types of vehicles. So you have small cars, you have big ones. I would like to have a cabrio service as well. Well, every person has its own demands and needs. If I look to the car sharing service next to my door, it's a Volkswagen Up. And I'm a Dutch guy who is 1.95 m. I don't fit in that one. So will I use the service? Probably not. So but if there's a mix which suits to many people's needs, I think we really can make a change.
So basically bringing the user to the center of all of the things.
Definitely. We have to, technology is there to serve people. And it's excellent what technology options we have with apps and mobile services and interconnectivity, but we need to serve people and to address their needs. And if that happens, then things can fly.
Yes, and there has been several comments from the audience that, of course, we need to take those into account who don't have the mobile apps and are not skilled enough, or elderly people. So this is also an important dimension that hasn't been raised here. So what would be your wish, Boyd Cohen? What would you wish for the mobility as a service?
I think I'd probably expand how I ended my last response regarding cities compelling private operators to open their APIs and connect to the open marketplace. I would say that and add another layer to it, which is there's an ongoing battle, I would say, in Europe in particular, around public transit authorities as they move to mobile-based ticketing and payment. Are they trying to monopolize their own Maas platform and only making their services available through their own Maas if they decide to deploy one? Or should they also be compelled, just like the private operators, to open their APIs, not just for routing with GTFS feeds, but also for ticketing and payment? It tends not to be an issue for IML because those organizations are our clients. So they're opening it up so that we can deliver the solution for their own app. But a lot of the private Maas operators that are, for example, trying to do a B2C approach, a model, they're struggling in Europe because a lot of the transit authorities are reluctant to open their APIs for allowing their tickets to be sold, and not just pay-as-you-go tickets, but more like monthly passes and discount passes. And I'd like to see, especially in the European context, that every operator of a mobility service be compelled, if they're going to operate in the region, they should be required to open their APIs and their ticketing so that any third-party aggregator, you could put some criteria around what minimum experience or minimum size of the organization or whatever criteria you want to put, but under certain criteria, any aggregator should be able to access and package these so that it improves seamless mobility, not just in one city, but ideally that this can roam. So anyone can travel anywhere in Europe with one app and access all the local mobility services in an open marketplace. And for that to happen, you need everyone to agree to open their APIs.
Very good. That is a very, very useful thing, and we really need to remind ourselves that it also applies, to, as you pointed out, to the regional authorities, to the national, and all the way through. And if I may add one to that wish, is that if the API would be standardized, so that it wouldn't be invented every time again and again, because that becomes more and more demanding. Great. What about Miguel? What would be your wish?
Well, our wish is to continue improving our system. We have already an app for all the service, and for those who don't have apps or can't use apps, we have passes for older people especially. But my wish is to continue to improve, to get more private operators. One of the conditions of any operator in Cascais is to add his system on our app, like Boyd was talking about, and to continue to provide the best service we can to our citizens and to all those that work, study, or visit Cascais. That's my best wish.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I mean, these are really important parts. So it's partly to add on and also engage the private sector to come and work in municipalities. So this is not also always so easy, this process. We have received several questions from the audience, and we will pass these questions to all of our panelists, and those that we have not yet been able to answer in the discussion here, we will answer in a written format and submit those to the website of ECOM. The webcast will be available on the ECOM website, and I would like to raise the issue that we have interesting panels coming up. The next one is this afternoon on the topic of circular economy and shared economy, mobility as a business. So I'd really warmly welcome you to attend also that panel. And I really warmly thank you, the panelists, and I wish that there would be this kind of a wish list that I could just tick and give you the ones that you wanted to be fulfilled. There are also some last remarks that I would like to raise, is that the issues that have been pointed out here about open API, open access and standardization, user in the middle, and also the different vision that targets towards the future, they are all part of the whole mobility as a service ecosystem. And this is a fairly new concept that is constantly developing, and there are several projects that are working on the topic. And I would recommend the audience listeners to Google and be on top of the things, because a lot of it is happening on the mobility as a service agenda nowadays. But in the end, all is up to the actual local context and local situation. So there needs to be something to move still and transport us from A to B. So we really need to have also the practical settings ready to welcome. As the COVID has showcased, we need to have the settings welcome to encourage our users to choose the best possible option for their purpose and for the sustainability of the area. So this is very important, that we need to keep in mind that we have a living environment that supports the initiatives that we are raising. Any last remarks that the panel still want to have? Friso, go ahead.
Should be unmuted. Yes, one remark is on the Share North manual, which I said will be available around summer. If anyone of you likes to pre-order it or this icon set that I have sent, please send me a message on LinkedIn, and I'll put your name on the list. Thank you.
Very good, very good. Any more commercials coming up? Go ahead.
Just wishing to meet you all in Cascais next year in private all together.
Great. And from Boyd, do you have something that you still like to say?
I'll just encourage everyone to stay safe, but also follow our motto at IAMOB: innovate, don't hibernate. Just because we're still in lockdown a little bit doesn't mean we can't continue to innovate and find a better way for the future of our mobility ecosystems, even remotely.
Absolutely. Great lessons learned. And there will be a publication coming out on guidelines on how to implement Maas in the local context. This will be also published in the summertime. So if you want to Google it afterwards and find how you do the local context and how do you enable the different parts, you're free to Google that with my name afterwards. Thank you. Thank you so much for the listening and have a safe day.
Thank you.
Thank you.